Welcome back to The Critique. Today we're looking at a transcript from a YouTube reaction video, one that's reviewing a satirical cartoon called The Candace Files.
I've had a look through this one. It's definitely got, a lot of energy. Feels like the kind of thing that gets those initial clicks, but maybe doesn't hold people's attention.
That's exactly it. That's the core issue we need to talk about. The first major hurdle is really just how the piece structures its setup for the audience. Effective reaction content, it really has to establish a clear baseline, a sort of ground floor before you start going up to the emotional reactions or, the judgment.
I see what you're saying. But isn't the whole trend on YouTube right now to just cold open? You start right in the middle of a laugh or a scream to hook people in?
There's a fine line between a hook and just confusion. Let's look at the opening here. It starts with, all right, guys, I'm not entirely sure who actually made this cartoon, but it's bloody brilliant. And then almost immediately, we get almighty dingbat. The weakness isn't the energy. It's that the listener is just thrown into the deep end without knowing what's being discussed.
When I read that first line, I'm not sure who actually made this, I honestly wanted to just click away. It felt, well, if you haven't even done the basic homework, why should I trust your take on it?
That's the authority problem, right there. You're admitting ignorance in sentence one, and it just undercuts your credibility. But even beyond that, it's a structural problem. So the suggestion here is to try and adopt a description reaction analysis sequence. You have to open with the facts about the media before you share your own feelings about it.
Okay, so practically what does that sound like? Because you don't want it to come off like a Wikipedia entry. That would just kill the whole vibe.
It doesn't have to be dry at all, just informative. So instead of, I'm not sure who made this, it's mocking candy, the script could open with something more like, this is a reaction to The Candace Files, a noir-style satirical cartoon that Frank J. Fleming shared, and it parodies investigative journalism.
That's much better. It immediately answers, what is this and what style is it?
Exactly. And if you look further into the transcript, the user brings up key plot points that would have been so helpful at the top. There's this mention of a strong feeling that leads the characters to break into an office.
Yeah, that part was kind of buried in the middle of everything.
Right. So if you just move those details to the beginning, set the stage that these characters are running on feelings, not facts, then the jokes that come later are going to land so much harder.
And what about the character? The scripture says Little Nicky. Now, I know that's Nick Fuentes. You know that's Nick Fuentes. But if you're a new viewer,
you're lost. The text says it's mocking Candy Owens and even Nick Fuentes, calling him Little Nick. It just assumes you'll make that connection. The fix is just to explicitly say that Little Nicky is a caricature of Nick Fuentes, and then maybe just briefly explain his role as the sidekick in this whole thing.
It really does change the dynamic from just, two friends laughing on a couch to someone actually broadcasting to an audience.
Exactly. You want to invite people in, not make them work to understand the joke, which brings us to the second big issue here. This one's about elevating the commentary itself.
I did notice that. A lot of the transcript is just the speaker quoting the cartoon directly.
Correct. The material makes a great case that the cartoon is funny, but, strong commentary has to deconstruct why the satire works. You can't just repeat the joke and then say, that was really funny.
That's what jumped out at me, yeah. The bit about the cream cheese. The speaker quotes the cartoon connecting cream cheese to the Babylon Bee and Netanyahu, and the only commentary is basically pure comedy, brilliantly done.
Okay, let me play devil's advocate for a second. If you explain the joke, don't you kill it? If the host starts lecturing about rhetorical devices over a joke about cream cheese, doesn't that just suck all the fun out of it?
It would if you did it like a college professor, yeah. But you can do it like a fan who actually appreciates the craft. For that cream cheese scene, instead of just repeating it, explain why it's funny. You could talk about how it's satirizing that whole conspiracy board trope, where completely random things are forced together to fit a story. I see. So you're not explaining the punchline, you're explaining the machinery behind it.
Yes, exactly. You're pointing out that the absurdity of it is the entire point.
There was another one I thought was a real missed opportunity, that Megyn Kelly reference. The speaker compares her line, I see nothing, to Colonel Schultz from Hogan's Heroes.
A perfect example. It's a fantastic cultural reference, but it's just left there. The weakness is that the comparison is made without any of the analysis. Why did the creator choose Colonel Schultz?
Because he's the guy who sees everything but pretends to see nothing to, stay out of trouble.
Right. He's the perfect symbol of willful ignorance that keeps the whole system going. To make the script stronger, the speaker needs to explicitly make that connection. It's not just that she sounds like Schultz. It's that she represents that enabler figure who needs plausible deniability. That turns a casual reference into a really sharp piece of critique.
That is so much richer.
And it justifies why I'm watching this reaction video instead of just the cartoon itself. You're there for the host's insight, not just their laugh track.
100%. And then you have the ending with the FBI. The character says she's on to us, and the reaction is just to call her a crazy lady.
Which, I mean, to be fair, in the context of the satire, it's accurate.
It's accurate, but it's also reductive. It's the lowest hanging fruit. The suggestion there is to analyze how it's mocking main character syndrome. The joke isn't just that she's crazy, it's the narcissism of believing the entire federal government is obsessed with her podcast.
That's a great distinction. Crazy is a dismissal. Main character syndrome is a diagnosis.
And that diagnosis is what makes commentary sharp. Now, speaking of sharp versus confusing, we need to talk about the internal references. This script is just full of them.
Oh man, Wolfie, Natalie Denise?
Exactly. My understanding from the notes is that the big issue here is that external references have to be grounded. You have to give the audience enough context so they can follow your logic.
It felt very inside baseball. I actually had to pause and look up Wolfie because I felt like I was missing the whole point. The script just says, reminds me of the whole Wolfie, the crazy accusation list.
And if you don't know who Wolfie is, that sentence is it's static. It pushes people away who aren't in that very specific social media bubble.
But isn't there some value in that kind of in-group language? It can make your core audience feel like they're part of a club.
There is value in building a community for sure, but you can build that community without putting up a wall. You want to let new people in on the joke. The suggestion is to use just, quick little phrases or asides to give those names context.
So how do you do that without killing the pacing? You can't just stop the show for a biography of some random Twitter user.
It takes literally 2 seconds. Here's an example. When mentioning Wolfie and his list, just say something like, "This reminds me of the accusation list you see from Wolfie, a user on X who's known for, tying random events together."
Okay, that was fast. A user on X known for tying random events together. That's all you need.
And now, suddenly, everyone gets the joke. The same thing goes for the restraining order that gets mentioned. The script says, because of that restraining order, we'll have to break in here.
I was genuinely confused by that. Is that a real-life restraining order? Or is that just a made-up plot point for the cartoon?
Right, that ambiguity hurts the whole thing. The viewer wastes mental energy trying to figure out what's real instead of just enjoying the satire. The fix is a single sentence, something like, the cartoon invents a restraining order to heighten the tension. Or, if it is real, referencing the actual legal issues between them.
It just grounds the listener. And honestly, the Babylon Bee reference needs that same treatment.
Yes, the speaker just assumes everyone knows what the Babylon Bee is.
And if you don't know it's a satire site, the idea of Netanyahu writing for them is just completely bizarre. It doesn't make any sense.
Exactly. So the fix is simple. For anyone who doesn't know, the Babylon Bee is a satire site, so the joke that a world leader is writing for them is meant to be absurd. It just bridges that gap.
It feels like the writer is talking to their 5 closest friends, but they want to be talking to a much bigger audience. These little bridges are how you get there.
Which moves us to our final point. And this is a big one. It's about the whole vibe of the piece. We need to look at the language being used to describe the subjects.
The insults.
The insults, yeah. There's this constant theme of relying on repetitive insults. Almighty dingbat, massive stupid dingbat, nut job, deranged.
I'm going to push back a little here. This is a reaction video. It's supposed to feel raw, right? Emotional. If you take out all the insults, don't you just turn it into a dry academic lecture? Isn't the anger part of the appeal?
That's a common thought, but I think it's a misconception. Anger can be appealing, but repetitive anger is just boring. The weakness here isn't the hostility. It's the lack of variety, the lack of precision. Just falling back on dingbat over and over creates this tedious loop. It lowers the whole intellectual level of the critique.
So you're saying you can still be mean, but you have to be mean in a smarter way?
I'm saying being meaner artistically. Let the cartoon do the heavy lifting when it comes to the mockery. That's what the visuals are for. The host's voice should be focused on appreciating the craft of the satire.
Okay, so instead of massive, stupid dingbat, what's the alternative? Because this person is factually incorrect, doesn't exactly scream viral content.
You're looking for descriptive critiques of the behavior. So you could replace dingbat with something like conspiratorial overreach or performative investigation. Or instead of just saying she's a massive, stupid dingbat, you frame it around what the cartoon is doing. The cartoon really effectively exaggerates her tendency to draw these huge conclusions from no evidence.
That actually has more bite. Dingbat is just name call. Drawing conclusions without evidence is actually exposing a flaw in their method.
That's it. It's the difference between a heckler in the crowd and a sniper. One just makes a lot of noise, the other one actually hits the target.
I also noticed the phrase bloody brilliant comes up again and again. It felt like a bit of a crutch.
It's a filler phrase. The suggestion is just to cut down on that kind of generic praise. Be specific. Why is it brilliant? Is the story narratively tight? Is it well-paced? Is the dialogue sharp?
It implies the speaker has actually thought about the work instead of just having a gut reaction. It builds more trust with the audience.
And that's really the ultimate goal here. We want to help move this script from being just a rant to being a review. Anyone can rant. A review provides value.
That's interesting. All four of these points, the context, the analysis, the references, and the tone, they all really point to the same fundamental thing, respecting your audience.
That's the core of it. Respecting their time by giving them context, respecting their intelligence by giving them real analysis, and respecting their attention by not boring them with repetition.
So, let's wrap this up. What's the final checklist for our listener here?
Okay, recap. First, structure the setup. Don't just assume we know what you're watching. Use that description, reaction, analysis model. Tell us the title, the premise, the players, before you start reacting.
And don't be afraid to spoil the setup a little bit. Front load the important details to make the jokes work.
Second, elevate the commentary. Don't just be a mirror reflecting the video. Be a lens. Explain why the satire is effective. Talk about the tropes, the logical fallacies, the mechanics of the humor.
Don't just say it's funny. Explain the truth that makes it funny.
Third, bridge the references. Avoid the inside baseball. If you mention a specific name like Wolfie or a specific event, use a quick phrase to explain what that is. Bring everyone into the joke.
And finally, refine the tone.
Yes, move away from just dingbat and nutjob. It gets old fast. Use precise, descriptive language to critique the behavior, not just the person. Let the cartoon be the punchline. You be the analyst.
I think if they make these changes, this goes from a video I'd probably click off of in 30 seconds to one I would actually share with someone.
We absolutely invite the listener to apply these edits, give it a real polish, and submit the revised script for a follow-up critique. We would love to see how it evolves.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing the 2.0 version of this.
Until next time, keep refining your work. This has been The Critique.